have such sights to show you.
You're all going to die tonight.
Good evening, my sweet tortured souls. Yes, that's right. I'm back. And joining me for a new take on Miss Violet's Underworld, over from Hun Yogika showing, is the motor mouth of the Southwest Derbyshire himself, Mr. Jimmy Lee Clifford. Hi, how you doing?
Hello. Shouldn't have played with that strange looking Rubik's Cube. You end up here, folks.
Yes, welcome back to the Underworld. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute. More than a fucking hot minute. It's been about a year since I actually did one of these. And now I'm back. The true Queen of Calico has risen from the grave, hungry for the flesh of the living. Because we're coming to get you, Barbara. There's no more room in hell. The dead are walking the earth. So it's time to kickstart a new season of Miss Violet's Underworld, deeper and darker. We're going headlong into the George A. Romero Dead franchise. Anything to say, Mr. Clifford?
It's been an experience, as you
Yeah.
well know.
Yes, a lot of these films were first time viewing for you, weren't they?
This is the thing. My take on this, folks, is I am a beginner in the horror genre, generally
Oh,
speaking.
yes. I popped.
And zombies are not usually my thing.
Yes,
So
you're.
yeah, this was an experience for me, this one.
Yes. I mean, over on Who You Geek is showing, your geek credentials got called out an awful lot. But at least on
I
this
feel like
at least on this show, we can cut you a little bit of slack because most of these you've never seen.
yeah,
So
no, yeah, like, I've got no credentials in the background of horror, folks.
you are the
Maybe,
fresh eye
maybe
perspective. You are the
smatterings.
you are the fresh eye perspective. You are the should you watch this film from the mid 1960s in the year 2025 if you've never seen it before? You can answer that question for a lot of the fans out there.
I can. That was this is so please be kind with the credentials because this is all new to me. This one. She got my Miss Violet has definitely got her chains into me.
Mm-hmm. But we're going to break this down because there are a lot of films to get through. We watched 9 films in total. Says as long as the Star Wars trilogies of trilogies.
It's about the same length.
Yeah, but of
They're
course
shorter films, but
we are breaking this down into what I have dubbed the OG films, the modern trilogy, and then the remake trilogy. So we're going to jump straight into it first with checking my notes over here. Night of the Living Dead made its premiere on October 1st, 1968. Now, the story follows initially Barbara and her brother Johnny going to a cemetery to lay a wreath on their father's grave, as they do every year. And while they're there, Barbara is teased by her brother about the time he jumped out and scared her, which leads him to say the now in the public zeitgeist pop culture perfect saying that is, they're coming to get you, Barbara. That line, anyone can do that and you know where it's from. Okay, it's one of those lines. But as he's doing this, as he's teasing her, a reanimated corpse in this film, never referred to as a zombie, only referred to as a ghoul, attacks Barbara, knocks Johnny out. Barbara runs for her life, finds a farmhouse and a hero in the form of Ben, played brilliantly by the late great actor Dwayne Jones. And then it's just a quest for them to survive the night of the living dead. And that's the story set up. And because we don't want to do too many spoilers.
Yeah.
But that is kind of an overview of the story. More characters do come into it as the film progresses. Yes, it came out in 1968. Yes, it's a black and white film. And yes, the lead actor was an African American black man. So
political tension.
let's talk about this. Over to you, Jimmy. I'm going to let you go first because this is your this was your first introduction to.
So yeah, the infamous "They're coming to get you, Barbara." I am familiar with that. I
Yeah.
have been familiar with that for a very long time. Didn't know it was from this film, and now I do. And just watching the first part of the intro and everything, they were coming to get Barbara,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there, it's literally finding their way to a place where they can attempt to survive the night.
An old farmhouse.
Uh, in the little farmhouse and that, and setting it up and coming up with a plan. And it's a, it's a 1968 film. I'm pretty sure, like people discuss this. This is something that geeks discuss. How do you survive a zombie apocalypse?
Oh yes, sitting around the pub with friends during my college years, watching these films over and over and over again because we love them so much. And that it would be a topic of the discussion, oh, if this really happened, what would you do? And there was multiple plans, multiple ideas. We'd write some of them down because they were so good. Like, yeah, that's a solid idea. So yeah, but I mean, back to the
What?
film. The one thing that you cannot deny is this one film alone is responsible for the way zombies are
Oh,
portrayed in media, not just in film, in media in general, across the board, all follow the tropes that were set up in this film. They're undead, they're living dead. They're dead bodies that have come back to life through some other means. If you're bitten, you become one of them. The only way to stop them is to shoot them in the head. They want to eat human flesh, not brains, not brains, human
brains,
flesh.
not brains, not brains, and definitely not brains.
Yes, not the guy from Thunderbirds,
Yeah,
the guy with the
not the
glass.
vegan zombie type.
Yeah, they were all vegan zombies want to eat grains. But anyway, um, these tropes that we kind of associate with zombies in general come from this. Before this film, a zombie was voodoo, person in a trance, that kind of thing. It wasn't the reanimated, shambling, living dead that we know today. So everything from the likes of the video games like Resident Evil and Dead Rising, all the
Like
way
literally
through to
every
Call of
single thing you can think of, Resident Evil, The Evil Dead, the every single thing seems to come back from this. I mean, obviously it's got its own thing from Victorian eras and various other myth and legend, but this is sort of the first modern take.
yeah,
And from
this
that, it sparked.
revolution, this changed the way zombies were presented, not just in film, like I said, but comic books, TV shows, video games, music videos. Michael Jackson's Thriller
Yeah.
was inspired by this film. So we cannot understate the importance of this film. But back to you watching it as a first time viewer,
First
a
time
film
viewer.
from
I
1968. You watched it in the year 2025 as a first time view.
as a first time viewer. So yeah, I got something off my watch list, Tony. Um, but yeah, basically, even today, this is a cracking film. It does definitely hold up. I mean, yeah, sure, special effects, CGI things. You know what? I adore and I can appreciate the viewpoint of practical effects over this. These days, there is too many CGIs. They should be used
Yes,
as an emphasis. This still holds up to this day.
it does.
Very,
It
very good
does.
film. Everything tracks as well. Like there is a logical reason why everything that you see happening is happening.
Yeah, it does. There is a nice flow and
Yeah.
continuity to everything that happens. One event leads to the next and the next and the next. It's kind of a masterclass in early filmmaking because you got to remember that okay, George Romero had filmed a couple of things before this. He'd done an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It was Mr. Rogers gets a tonsillectomy. You know,
Yeah.
This was his first proper film. This was his first film that was going to go into theaters and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
to do the budget that he had, which is virtually next to nothing, as
I think I heard recently somewhere that by today's count, by today's conversion rate,
well, the effective
he made that film for in what today's money would have been 70,000. Was it
Yeah.
70,000 or was it 700,000? It was one of those two numbers.
Either way,
I heard it
by
in
today's
passing.
standards, that's a very low budget film.
By today's standards, even at 70,000, that would be considered like B movie
Yeah, that's
grindhouse, which was kind of what it
B-rated.
was
Yeah, yeah,
back then. It was still a low budget film, even for that
yeah.
time.
And the way they have to basically problem solve the props, the special effects, everything else, problem
A
solving
lot
that.
of a lot of
Yeah,
people pulled double duty in that. A lot of the people were actors in it. They were makeup department, catering department, lighting department, sound department. Everyone who worked on that film did double duty or sometimes triple duty. Carl Hardman, who played Harry Cooper in the original, was actually one of the financiers, one of the people who helped put the story together and helped source all the meat and stuff
yeah.
for the eating scenes. He did all that as well as acting in the film, so he had to learn his lines and all that as well as doing everything else. I think the woman who played his wife, I can't remember her name off the top of my head. Do forgive me. Um, I think she was one of the makeup artists who did like the makeup on the faces and stuff. And I think she even doubled as one of the zombies in the crowd in the background.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's one
No,
of those
it's
early
first
filmmakers
take.
where
This film shouldn't have been on my watch list or buried the way it was, especially because, like I say, I've unfortunately had that tendency of writing off some of the older films as being a bit silly, a bit nonsensical, and maybe now I'm starting to appreciate some of what, especially with what I've had to learn on
the
what
way
they actually had to work with.
one of my dear friends many years ago, um, it was around about the time that 28 Days Later came out,
Yeah,
which
that is the
was
one that I have watched.
another horror movie with
Yeah,
sort of zombies. They're still living people, but they're zombie-esque type archetypes. Again, trace it back to this film.
yeah, yeah.
But
Because
it was
you
around
look
about
at
that.
that films,
It was around
Fast
about
Zombie. Is it a George Romero slow zombie or a 28 Days Fast Zombie?
right. But around about the time that film came out, one of my friends said that Romero's zombies shuffled so that 28 days long later zombies could run. And I mean, that's a fair analogy. That's a fair
Yeah,
analogy.
it's a fair
Really?
analogy that because obviously they had to do something newer with something of
Well, I
newer
mean,
nature.
we've this has been said on this channel many times by a few people that the only way to keep a franchise or a genre
Yeah,
more specifically a genre, to keep intrigue in that and to keep fans coming back to that particular type of genre, you do have to do something different, even if you're
yeah.
using that zombie template.
Zombie premise.
You're using that end of the world zombie. There's a virus that's turned people into nasty creatures that want to kill you, whatever, however you
Yeah,
want to paint it up. It just sort of, you have to reinvent it every so often, change it up a
yeah,
little bit. Because if you just do the same thing as the last guy and the guy before that, eventually it's going to be, oh, it's another zombie film. Let me guess. There's going to be a virus. There's going to be a cure. There's going to be a bunch of people trying to get the cure. There's going to be one of the group that gets bitten and hides it from that. It became very formulaic. Like the early 2000s,
yeah.
there were so many zombie films that kind of flooded the market that followed the same
Yeah.
pattern. And it was
This might be the other reason why I didn't watch this film for so long because it was like I heard every other week with talking to friends at the teenage level in the 2000s. This zombie flicks out, that zombie flicks out. This one does this one does that, and it's like they sound all the same.
But for me, as a lifelong fan of Night of the Living Dead, I can remember watching this. Do you know what? I can't even remember how old I was when I first watched this film, but I remember watching it and it kick-started a lifelong obsession with zombie films, but also special effects, because it captured my young little mind of how all this
Yeah,
stuff was just makeup.
yeah. How are they doing?
Yeah, it was like, how do they do
Yeah,
that?
no, you've got that. That's the other thing about this film that's got me. It's like some of the practical effects, even though it's an old film, because it's a practical thing, it bloody holds up.
It does.
Sometimes better than the
It's
CGI that you 20 years ago.
exactly. And this is why I love these older films with their practical effects because it's in camera. You get to see it.
Yeah.
But Night of the Living Dead for me is just a seminal horror classic. I watch it at least two, three times a year. I have a Trilogy of the Dead box set. Now, this disappoints me a little bit because the version of Night of the Living Dead that comes with this, I will show this off a little bit because it is a beautiful box set.
Visual aids, folks, visual aids.
Yes, visual aids. Let me just move the booklet out of the way. But when you first open it, you've got this lovely double-sided thing, so you can angle it to say Night of the Living Dead, have that out on your shelf. And it's a 4-disc set, night, dawn, day, and a disc called Document of the Dead, which is about 6 hours worth of documentaries. One of them about a retrospective that was made in the 90s when the remake of Night of the Living Dead was made. It's a retrospective on the original. And the other one is The Dead Walk, which is a making of documentary that was made around about the time when Dawn of the Dead was coming out. And it also follows on with the making of Day of the Dead. It kind of puts the two together.
Yeah.
And it's very, very good. But the version of Night of the Living Dead that comes with this is, I think it's the 35th anniversary. It does say, I think, on the disc. No, it's an anniversary edition. Now, the problem with that is this was after John Russo, one of the writers, and George Romero had a little falling out. So for this anniversary edition, John Russo re-edited the film and added in some new footage that was shot specifically for it in the modern day and blended it in. It completely changes the ending, which I hate. I'm not even going to go there and spoil it to anyone, but we'll watch this one another time, Jimmy, and trust me.
Yeah, no, it's fine. There was a lot of films to get in.
Yeah, I would have just added a 10th one to it, and it's the third version of the same film. So I mean, I get it, but that version to me, although there is some bits in the middle that bulk it out a little bit, that was like, I like that bit, but the beginning bit and the ending bit, the way they changed that, I was like, no, no, it just no.
Definitely seems to be something I'm going to have to watch
Yeah.
on the as
So
an anniversary because as folks, I watched the original, and
right, so
it's my favorite there. I'm going to say that now.
going to
This one's my favorite out of the bunch of them.
hold on. If you're going to track down a copy of the original, get on your eBay, maybe get on your Amazon, and see if you can find a release from Into Film. This one. This version of it is a direct copy of the original film negative. So it's got all the bits and the scratches, and it's like watching it in its original format when it would have been shown at the drive-in theaters. If you've got a big enough TV, you can kind of recreate that feeling at home.
Which actually adds to the experience with this one because it's also in black and white.
It's in black and white and it's completely unedited, uncut. There's no missing footage or anything. So if you're going to track down, either get the Blu-ray, because I think the Blu-ray does have a HD version and an original print version of it. I think I'm not 100% on that, but if not, get this one. It's most like it was in the cinema. So, but moving on to my personal favorite in the franchise. After the night of the living dead comes the dawn of the dead. Set kind of the timeline's wonky, okay?
Yeah.
It's supposed to pick up after the events of Night of the Living Dead, but it's a whole new group of people. There was legal rights that George couldn't use the same characters or anything. Anyway, Dawn of the Dead made its debut September 1st, 1978, a full 10 years after Night of the Living Dead.
Bit of a break.
Now, the story for this one, it starts off in a news office. Everything's falling apart. Everything's going to chaos. They're still trying to put out a news show to inform people of what's going on. And we focus on Fran and her boyfriend, Stephen. more commonly known as Flyboy. They have a plan to escape and get out. Then we cut over to an apartment block where the SWAT are raiding it, trying to move people out because, and I only found this out recently, it's not very stated very clearly in the film, but apparently in the novelization, it stated that the reason why the SWAT were raiding that place was because they'd been given reports that the people of the building were keeping the zombified dead in the basement and essentially spreading the virus.
Although it's never stated causing the zombification process, but nobody actually knows.
Yeah, it's never fully kind of put across in the film exactly why they're there. It's just they're there. And
They're there.
you're introduced to a character called Roger and another character called Peter, who we meet slightly later on. The four of them team up and they initially hatch a plan to fly up north, get away from the zombies, go hide in the cold. Maybe zombies won't like the cold, maybe they'll freeze. They just want to get away. But then they stumble across that most magical of thing that we take for granted nowadays, but was a brand new thing in 1978, a mega shopping mall. And they get lured in by how bright and shiny it is that they don't see that it's a prison too. Direct quote there. And yeah, it's pretty much how they go about barricading themselves in, trying to live a normal life in there, but then realizing that
normal life has come and gone, folks.
yeah, they are clinging on to something that no longer exists. And yeah, it's my personal favorite. There are multiple cuts of this film. So trying to track it down on DVD is very hard. I mean, I've got this one that says it's the full uncut version. I can tell you by its running time, it is not. The full uncut version is currently available on Prime and it's listed as the Cannes cut. Now, the Cannes cut is the cut that was first shown on its release date. That's the date that I'm going by here. That was when it was first shown at Cannes Film Festival. So obviously that was before the censors or anyone got hold of it. So if you want to see all of the lovely gore, that's the version to watch. If you don't mind missing out a little bit on some of the gore, you're more there for the story of the characters. The uncut version that on that DVD that I've got there, the one that comes in the Trilogy of the Dead box set, and I think the one that comes on the Blu-ray, they are all listed as the director's cut, and I think they run at like 120 minutes. There's 20 minutes of missing footage, but it's not anything story critical.
No.
So, but go on then, Jimmy. Your thoughts of Dawn of the Dead upon a first viewing?
I managed to watch this one twice.
Yes.
This is a film. I'll put this in. This film. Don't watch it if you're getting too tired and you might maybe doze off or anything, or you might, yeah, because this one, it still tracks as good as the first one, right? Everything does have a sequence and a pattern as to why the story's going the way it's going. But it's just a little bit hard to follow because of the aforementioned. It starts in the reporting where that's falling apart, then it cuts to the siege scene, which is kind of happening at the same time as what you've just seen.
Yeah.
So that you then get to the actual sort of central group at the shopping mall and why they're there. So it's got that setup premise that you have two characters doing one set of things, simultaneously the other two characters are doing the other set, and then they all meet up and it carries on. So it can be a little bit harder to follow, which is why I ended up watching it twice. And the Cannes cut I felt like the Cannes cut is the extra 20 minutes is kind of worth.
It's the superior version, isn't it? It really is.
It does having because that was the thing as well, because I had to watch this one twice. Watching the director's cut, if that from right, you said the director's cut with the 20 minutes missing.
That's the one that's on the box set. Yeah, that was the one that I lent to you.
Watch that one. It doesn't seem to. It flows, but it doesn't seem to flow quite as well as.
It's a little jumpy, isn't it? It's a little.
Yeah, there's a little bit of jumpiness going and jankiness, which is possibly what lowered this one slightly down my favorite list on these films, because there's that going on. But if you go for the Cannes cut, it works a lot better.
Yeah,
And
that's what I mean. Like, if you're going to watch this film in, if you've never seen Dawn of the Dead, you
you've
want to
never
jump
seen
into
it,
it. My personal recommendation, and obviously Jimmy's as well, is watch the Cannes cut
watch
because
the Cannes cut.
it's the full version.
The
There's
extra 20
nothing.
minutes is worth the runtime.
Yeah, it's worth the long ass run time. It's like 2 hours and
Worth the
20 minutes.
longer, yeah, it is worth that longer ass runtime
Yes.
because it does flow better.
But
And
for me, as a lifelong fan of this was actually the first one I can properly remember seeing of I had it on a VHS tape. Like randomly, I flicked onto BBC Two one night, flicking through the TV, BBC Two, and it said, "And coming up next, George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead," and I was like, so I stuck a VCR straight into the machine. I didn't care what I was recording over at the time, and hit record. I held on to that VCR tape until VCRs were outdated.
obsolete.
I could have bought it on D. I had a DVD player. I could have bought it on
Probably not.
DVD, but I still kept that VHS because it was just oh. But I fell in love with this film because of the premise of it. We've all had that power fantasy of when we're walking through like a shopping center and going,
Yeah.
what would it be like to be locked in here after hours and just have free run, do whatever I want in here? We've all had that power fantasy, and this film shows you what that would be like if you had free reign of a shopping center that was quite literally a small town with a roof.
Yeah. Shopping malls in America are much larger than the ones over in England, but I think the England, even if you're in a major city centre such as Birmingham, like the Bullring,
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
yeah, you
IKEA up
definitely get
near
that power
Nottingham.
trip. You can go into any shop you like, get
Yeah,
whatever you want.
that's what I mean. We've all had that power fantasy of just doing what if we were
It's
able,
all on tap.
right?
Yeah, it is a bit of a
What I really love about this film is not so much just the premise, it's the characters. This one for me over the first one.
yeah.
Okay, the first one, there's a lot of characters, and
Yeah,
a lot of
there
them,
seems to be a few more characters in the first than this one, and that's what holds it back for me.
in the
But I'll let
first
you.
one, they introduced new characters about halfway through, so you don't get much time to kind of really form a bond with these characters. But in this film, you get the four main characters from the get go,
Yeah,
and by the time you get to the end and you see everything they've been through, it's like, oh, like you actually feel something. You know what I mean? Like that for me edges this one ever so slightly over in terms of characters. But the first one just, oh, no, second one will always be my favorite. Just the characters, the acting. Okay, it's 1978, it's cheese. The
yeah. And
special effects in this one, this is another thing. I'm one of those who, as much as I love the special effects because they're just, if they were different special effects, it just wouldn't be the same film. But when you compare it to later films in the franchise, the zombies come across as very blue, and the blood comes across as very paint-like.
Yes.
Which is a bit jarring going into the next film in the franchise where everything becomes all of a sudden super fucking realistic.
Yes.
So almost like it goes from like a cell shaded comic book style to ultra realistic, like fucking, you know.
And this is a good the good thing is if you are a first time viewer of any of these films, like all of them, like I was, going from the first to the second to the third is definitely because that will build up the tolerance to certain things.
Yes, yes.
Right? Because definitely in this film, children, zombies. That
Yes,
answer
that was
question is answered. But we'll get
that
back
was
to the other one later.
that was one thing that was heavily censored from the Cannes cut was that scene.
Yes, there's a scene.
The one thing I will say with Dawn of the Dead is it's give us that again, another immortal line right up there with "They're coming to get you, Barbara" is when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
And they even pulled that voodoo back in.
Yeah, like maybe there's more to it than it's just a virus from space because that was one thing that was never fully cleared up in the first one was Is it a virus? Is it something? Is it an organism from outer space? What is it? There was never given a concrete answer of why the dead are coming back from the grave. It never fully states that, and I love that about this franchise. Is it's happening. Why is it happening? Who cares? It's happening. Which is kind of where
that is a theme, and that runs into the next one, which I'm guessing
we're gonna run. We're gonna roll into the next one now.
Yeah, because that little point of, does it at this point matter
Exactly, but
why it's happening?
But we survived.
How the hell did we stop it?
Right? We survived the night. We survived the dawn. Now it's a brave new world as we enter the Day of the Dead, which came out June 30th, 1985. So not as long of a gap between this one and Dawn as there was between Dawn and Night. Now, this one, the premise for this one, literally at the beginning, it starts up with a woman sat in a room. If you are a Stranger Things fan, you will know this scene because it is the start of season 3. Day of the Dead is the film that the kids sneak in to see, and the intro to Dawn of the Dead, where the arms come bursting through the wall, that was shown in Stranger Things. So again, this just shows the cultural significance of the Romero Dead films. They work their way into an on-screen cameo in Stranger Things. I mean, it's when you know you've made it. But the premise for this one is it's set up. A woman called Sarah is in a helicopter with a couple of others. They land down in a city using a bullhorn. They keep shouting, "Is anyone alive out there?" And you see a march of the zombies, and the updated practical effects are on full display because as soon as the credits come up saying Day of the Dead, you're presented with a zombie who's missing his jaw, but his tongue is still flapping about. And that is just like, okay, this is a step up from the previous one. I'm in. Let's go. Let's go. So right off the bat, the special effects are 1,000 times better. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that just in that short time.
It is progression on the special effects. Thank you, Tom Savini.
But it is later revealed that they are part of a joint scientist and military team that are studying zombies and trying to figure out what's making the dead come back and if there's possibly a way of controlling them. So, Jimmy, that's the story. Go on, off you go.
This one, again, first time viewing. This one, it's a. I think this is where it goes with me. The first film, brilliant. I said that's my favorite because that's kind of where it started and it's so iconic. Dawn lost me a little bit because of its jankiness.
Mm-hmm.
This one got me because this is a bit more up to date with the special effects.
A bit more realistic.
So a bit more realistic, and Decay has started to really settle in with this one.
Yeah,
this one's
zombies are very, very
wild.
They are the mind's eye image when someone says zombie. You know, their faces are all sunken in, their eyes are all tiny, their mouths are all gnarled up. They've got chunks missing. You can see bits.
The other thing that gets me for this film, it's that survivor psychological side starts dripping through just that little bit more.
Miguel's
been at this a while.
Miguel at the beginning, you can see as
he's on breaking point.
He's at breaking point. Now he's had enough of this, and he's the character that I think is the most tragic in the film because of what happens to him. No spoilers, but what happens to him towards the end of the film, it's like, oh,
yeah, it is a kind of. Couldn't he have managed that in some other format? But no spoilers.
But no spoilers. So yeah, as a first-time viewer, you were very impressed with this one, then.
Yeah, this one was this. Like I said, I've ended up watching this one twice, simply because for some reason, in my brain, watching all these films together, they sort of got blended a little bit between the various things, and this one introduces a very, very interesting take with Bob.
There was a time, right? Do you remember when MySpace was a thing?
Yes.
My
You're telling us how old we are, guys.
yeah, but my MySpace page was dedicated to Bob and Day of the Dead. I There was like a 10-year period where I called him Bob the Zombie King. For me, he was the pinnacle of zombies. You were not going to get another more iconic face for a zombie franchise than Bob. The way he salutes.
Yeah, that is
But
very
Bob,
is
just
good.
Bob. Bob for me is what makes the film. And I've watched many an interview with the actor who played him, and the nuances and little things that he did with the character, that it's not until you get into your second or maybe even third viewing where you're watching his character just in the background while other people are talking, and it's like he's a very different kind of zombie. And
That's a different
you know
breed.
what, right? The scene that gets me, we're not going to go into it too deep, but the scene for me is where he finds Frankenstein. You know the one I'm talking about.
Yes, yeah, no, that
Like he's managed to get himself out of his chain.
yes,
Seeing a zombie emotionally upset actually upsets me. I'm like, oh, but
there's recognition and brain pattern
yeah,
there,
like
and you can see it.
he associates a positive feeling with this human. This is a zombie. Like this zombie has an emotional
That's
attachment.
as they previously do in another scene. This is lunch or dinner or breakfast. But
Yeah.
he's emotionally upset over this particular thing.
But yeah, Bob for me was just like he was the starting block of the smart zombie. Okay, later in the franchise, this is expanded on a little bit more, but we'll get into that
Get there.
soon. But for me, this one is right up there with Dawn.
Yeah.
I don't love this one more than Night. For me, in order of favorites, it would be Dawn, Night, and then Day. Purely because, again, I think the same problem I have with Day is the same as I have with Night. There's too many characters that are introduced at
Yeah.
different intervals, that the ones that you see at the very beginning, when you get to the end of it, you're like, oh, I'm glad they made it through. But the ones who die throughout it, you're just kind of like, I didn't even know your name, mate.
Yeah. There
You
is
know,
that
it's
little
very
problem.
like,
Some of the characters do get lost
yeah,
in
a
the
little bit. But
mix.
the ones that are supposed to shine, Rhodes, Steele,
Roads.
those two characters in particular, Steele is kind of low key one of my favorite characters in it because he's an asshole, but he's a lovable asshole. Because at the end of the day, he's just following orders. The standoff in the meeting hall where he's pointing the gun at Sarah, you can see he doesn't want to do that,
You don't want to do that.
but he's following the chain of command. You
Yeah.
know, he's caught between following his orders and doing what's right, and he's there.
Yeah. And
And
I think
that's why I like him. He's an asshole, but he's a lovable asshole.
that's some like it's almost pulling in a little bit from things that happened in real life from World War II, Nam, things like that. It's like there's certain things that have slipped in,
Yeah,
like certain events that have caused like I don't want to do this, but I'm under orders. And it's almost as if he's with the wrong particular set of group because with a different group, he might be entirely different.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But for me, absolutely brilliant film. Special effects absolutely on point. Although Tom Savini worked on them, it was actually through K&B Effects, which is now run by Greg Nicotero. And if you know that name, it's because he's worked very closely on The Walking Dead. So, a guy who cut his teeth in the zombie, working with a zombie mastermind like George Romero, he went
Still
on to
working
then
on
make The Walking Dead.
it.
So, you know, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon there. Anyway, anyway. So yeah, final thought on Day of the Dead from you there, Jimmy.
For me, the first three films are the better three films. They are the proper sort of masterclasses from the different perspectives. What's going on? These three films are still very watchable even today.
Exactly.
So if you are a first time viewer, don't write them off because of their age. simply accept they are with certain things as well. They
Yeah,
are product of their time.
yeah.
Certain political stances, certain things have
Yeah,
changed.
we're,
Kind
we're
of.
gonna get
Don't
we're
just
gonna get
write
to
it off
that.
because it's snowflake.
We're
You
gonna
know.
we're gonna get to that a little later on. We are going
Yeah.
to cover that in a little
Yeah.
later on. A
But
little later on.
they still hold up.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it is down to the like
It's the story.
not just the really good story, but
It's
the
the story,
practical
yeah.
effect of it. The practical effects really
Oh,
still hold up
definitely.
pretty damn well.
But right then, so that
And
is
what
what I
it's like,
consider the OG films. We're going to move on to now what I call the past 2000 films or the modern trilogy, because these ones came out in pretty quick succession to each other. We have Land of the Dead was up first, June 18th, 2005, 20-year gap. Now,
Until years ago.
The premise for Land of the Dead is it's set around, it's kind of hint dropped that it's the zombie apocalypse has been going on for about 3 or 4 years at this point.
Yeah.
Um, the town of Fiddler's Green, it's surrounded by water on most sides. There's bridges and stuff. They managed to wall it off and basically keep life going as normal within this little town. They send out
No,
raiding parties. They send out raiding parties to the local nearby towns to collect food and supplies in a vehicle called Dead Reckoning, which is custom built to survive the zombie apocalypse. Which originally, the name of the film, while it was in pre production, was called Dead Reckoning. So there you go. That's where it comes from. But this film kind of follows several different characters. The main character of Riley and his friend Charlie. Charlie's my favorite character in this film, hands down. Have to say it. It follows them as they want to escape Fiddler's Green and head up north and just get away from everything. Then there's Cholo, played brilliantly by John Leguizamo, who thinks that because he's done all these jobs for the big guy in charge, Kaufman, played
yeah.
brilliantly by the late great Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper's in a zombie movie, people. If you like Dennis Hopper, Land of the Dead's for you.
Yes.
So it kind of follows a lot of different story beats, and it even follows a zombie. Big Daddy
Big Daddy.
is a continuation of the Bob archetype, where this zombie not only remembers kind of who he was and what he used to do, but he's teaching others to do it. He's communicating with them. They're starting to put together the bare bones of a society, maybe.
Kind of. Like a
Kind of.
mutual recognition of various things.
Now, as enjoyable as this film is, and as much as I think it is a good follow up
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
overall, it's not a great film because I don't want to slag this film up because I do enjoy watching this film.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching this
There's
film.
there's too much going on.
Yeah.
There's too many characters to follow, and I think no pun intended here, but I think the stuff with the zombies is not fleshed out enough for you to, like I said, like Bob. By the end of
Yeah.
day, you came to care about what this zombie was going through, right?
Yeah, and that's a weird sensation. You care
Yeah.
about a zombie.
And with Big Daddy, you can get where he's coming from. That the reason why he's marching on the city is because he's sick of the humans, people coming through and killing his kind.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, there
almost like he remembers, especially with that particular actor and what you see of Big Daddy. It's almost like he remembers that was what was going
well,
on
there's
before.
one scene in it that I think should have been left until later. There's a scene where he's trying to get the zombies to move out of the way when they're being shot at. And this one zombie gets his head chopped off by machine gun fire and it's there looking at him. And he looks really sad. He drops it on the floor and then he stamps on the head. This is only about 10 minutes into the film. And I'm like, there's not enough of a rapport here to have that emotional impact. But then later on in the film, you see a zombie stumbling along and he sets himself on fire. And Big Daddy shoots him to put him out of his misery.
And that you feel a bit more about.
That's a bit more because it's you've seen him march with this crowd of zombies so far. It's like I
And
think
it's almost as if certain things from other films are coming in. Because it's like if you're in that situation, like you see more from the human side of it. I don't want to be a zombie. I don't want to be part of that. If I start turning that way, shoot me. Get the thing right and kill me. And
yeah,
it's almost like the reverse is happening on the zombie side.
yeah. So like I mean, as much as I love the film, it does have its flaws. It does have its moments where I'm like, okay, then there's a few leaps in logic where I'm like, uh, but okay. I mean, overall, it's a good film. Ozzy
It was.
Argento's in it. Like I said, my favorite character is Charlie because he's sort of George himself said he's like an idiot savant. You know, he's got this one particular skill that he's really, really, really good at. It just so happens to be using a rifle.
Yeah.
And some of the things he says, you know, like, oh, like, I need a drink. Just look at me. You can tell I need a drink. You know, one bit that to this day it still makes me laugh. It's they've just got Dead Reckoning back. Charlie's got two people held up at gun, like either side of him. And Riley's outside and he goes, "You okay in there, Charlie?" He goes, "I'm being friendly."
Yeah, because he's not shooting them.
He's not shooting him, he just goes, "I'm being friendly." And it's like because he told him, "Let's go there and let's be friendly." So he's there pointing guns
Yeah,
at people, going, "I'm being friendly." And it's like Charlie, that's not what he meant, mate. But
yeah.
I love Charlie. The actor who played him, I can't remember his name, but absolutely amazing. Again, like I said, I liked it, but it's not as good as the original three for me.
That
Jimmy,
was my feeling. That was my feeling. It's
you're
not.
watching it. You watched it for the first time.
Watching it for the first time, I will say again, the practical and special effects again, they're
Hmm.
ramping up. It's now into the 2000s, and so the special effects are up there. They also still hold up for today. I
There
mean,
is
there is
there is some CG. There is some
there
CG
is some CG
used.
entering.
It's used sparingly, and it's used to enhance what's already
Yeah,
been. It's like an overlay.
yeah,
It's HDing the gore,
yes,
basically. So it's there to
yeah.
enhance.
It's
And
just
some of it's not even no. There's some scenes where it's like, oh, I
yeah,
can
that
see CGI there, but there's other scenes where it's so quick you don't even notice.
you know, see, yeah. And that's a good thing about this. So it is enjoyable as a film anyway.
Yeah,
The story premise is good.
yeah.
But it is, again, like you mentioned, there are quite a few characters that you are trying to pick up with. And sometimes it feels like you haven't quite spent enough getting to know them or understanding them. And sometimes you know maybe too much and you feel like maybe they're doing something they goes against a little their character in places. But it does hold up as a good film. It's definitely if you're gonna again first time viewer, if you're gonna watch this series, watch them all.
Watch them in
Do
order.
watch all and watch them in order. Yes,
Yes.
definitely watch them in order. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. We'll
So yeah,
watch them.
Diary of the Dead, highly recommendable. If you're doing a series watch, you won't regret watching it if you've never seen it. But for someone like myself who has seen it multiple times throughout the years, even on rewatches now, there's a lot of it where I just kind of zone out because it's like there's too like as Jimmy just said, too many characters. There's a bit too much going on, and there's certain scenes where I'm like, why did that even happen? Like,
Because again, I've only watched this one once, so this is my first viewing, and I'm possibly I might end up with Violet on this one. Like on multiple viewings, I might notice certain other bits, and it doesn't quite grab me as much on a first viewing. It's definitely worth giving it the once over.
but
Definitely.
moving swiftly on with more Dead films on September 8th, 2007. And I actually went to the cinema to see this one. It was a birthday treat. Um,
Diary.
Diary of the Dead. Now, this one is what the one that gets. I'm sorry, I have an itchy lip.
It's okay.
This is the one that
What
tends to get a
have you been
little
doing
bit.
to get an itchy lip?
This is the one that gets a lot of flack from what I've seen online from the fans because it's one of those very divisive films where some people say it does fit in with the original timeline. Okay. And then there's other people who say that it does not. And this is where I sit with it, right? Because this film is supposed to be, here's the premise. It's a found footage film for one. So if you don't like found footage films, you're not going to like this one.
Well, yeah, no.
Like we said earlier, you have to reinvent the wheel sometimes when it comes to zombie films. This was just George trying something new. He'd never done a found footage film. He was like, I'm going to give it a whirl. I'll see what happens. Now, the premise is it's supposed to be taking place at the same time as Night of the Living Dead. It's as the zombie outbreak is happening. Now, throughout the film, there are little radio clues and stuff in the background that are directly from
Night of the Living Dead.
But the glaringly obvious problem here is the fact that it's a found footage film, so they're using camcorders. They upload the footage and constantly reference about using the internet. They use footage from a mobile phone at one point. So it's very, very clearly set in the year that it came out. So that raises the question of, okay, if this is set at the same time as this film, either you have to explain in why in Night of the Living Dead nobody had a cell phone, nobody had a laptop, nobody had a tablet, nobody had access to the internet, nobody
Nobody knew what the internet was.
yeah. But then you also have to explain why all of a sudden it's not there and then all of a sudden it is. Like
Yeah.
yeah, there's a bit of a chronological fuck up there. Like
Yes.
so for me, this is just my personal timeline. I like to go the original trilogy, pre 2000s. Then for me, Land of the Dead is a spiritual, not a direct follow up, a spiritual reboot of the franchise. Diary is a spiritual reboot of Night, and the next film is a spiritual remake of another one. So that gives you two timelines because the events of Diary, Land, and the last one kind of fit the same kind of time period. Because
Yes.
again, Land of the Dead for me,
Especially with Diary having a character from one of the other films.
yeah, but this is where Land doesn't fit for me in the timeline either because when it shows you Fiddler's Green, it shows you the TVs and stuff, and they're very clearly late 90s, early 2000s TVs. So I like to think of this as the start of another trilogy. That's just me. But Diary of the Dead, it follows a group of film students who were out in the woods filming a mummy film, not a zombie film, a mummy film. When they start hearing reports of the virus outbreak and people turning into zombies and blah 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 blah, and it's presented. This is the weird thing that gets me right. It's presented as they shot it to document what was happening. Then it was edited and uploaded onto the internet, and the narrator even states that I've added music at certain points to scare you. So it's not really a documentary. Then it's a glamorization of actual factual events, and I'm like, wait a minute, who does that sound like in this modern age? Did George predict something there? Sensationalizing the news to get more views and hits? I mean, does anybody do that in 2025?
Of course not.
No, that doesn't
Of course
happen.
not. That's fake news.
But
Fake news.
for me, right, again, I have a little nostalgia for this one because it was a birthday treat.
Yeah.
It was after. Uh, Unfortunately, I missed Land of the Dead in the cinema. I didn't get a chance to see it in the cinema. So this for me was like, I get to see a Romero Dead film in the cinema. Yay! But overall, I'm not a big fan of found footage films. There's an over reliance on CG. Only one of use which I actually thought was really good was when they shattered a jar of acid on the zombie's head and it slowly burned into his brain. That I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
That's a really good use of CGI, but the
That,
rest of
that
it,
CG also holds up. For that particular scene, that holds up.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's so subtle that you know it's CG just by looking at it, but it's
Yes.
held up because it's so subtle.
Yeah.
But for me, this one is again, if you're doing a series watch through, I recommend watching it. But the only part, and we talked about this, the only part I can remember about this is Thomas, the Amish
Thomas.
guy.
Samuel.
Samuel, sorry, yes, Samuel, the Amish
Samuel.
guy.
No, I love Samuel. If you're going to watch this, so the first viewer take here,
Here we go.
right? It's definitely
Who's first viewer take
this
on it? Come on.
film. So, like I said, watch them. If you're watching anything of these films, watch them in the correct order, right? And leave the remakes till later on. We'll get to why. But but
Samuel is just
Samuel, he is the biggest highlight in this film. He's not in it for very long, folks, unfortunately.
we won't spoil it. We won't spoil it, but
But not to spoil it, right? And not to totally spoil it, deaf, mute, Amish guy
no, he's not
that
mute.
I
He's just
just
there.
come
He's just there.
across,
Throws
right?
dynamite to blow zombies up.
And that's his entrance as well. He throws dynamite, and everything else after that. It's a good highlight for this film, and this is I personally feel that this is the weakest film in the franchise.
Yes,
This
yes,
is the weakest one. I think the idea being found footage is a very good premise, especially for these
yeah,
sets of
yeah. It's just
right. This idea is a good premise. I bless George. I don't think it was executed
no,
quite as well as it could have been,
no.
and that's why it's a bit
I agree
weak.
with
There's
you on
certain things, and this is the other thing about it. I feel this is the other first for George. He's starting to have a go with the CGI.
that. It was an early play around with CGI for George. Yeah,
Early play around with CGI, which some of it does hold up, as we've mentioned.
not though. Some of it
Some
really
of it not so much. I also like the premise there's another character that comes into this who then turns up in the next film.
yes,
So,
and was technically in Land of the Dead, which is why
and
I see it as a trilogy. A
yes, and it's a good
trilogy.
that is something I think, like you mentioned to me, George wanted to have this continuation of certain
Um,
people surviving one film going into the
with
next.
with the original trilogy, he did state in an interview that he would have liked to have had sort of at least one or maybe two characters that carried over across each film.
A
But
cameo appearance or something,
yeah,
just to
but
show you what was going on with that character that you may have
yeah,
picked up
but
on.
due to the fact that each film was made under different studios,
Yeah,
he
he
could not
couldn't
get
do
the
it.
rights to do that. So he had to
He
make
couldn't do it. Yeah,
tweaked
and with
versions
this,
of the same character, which is kind of in a way where we get a lot of these zombie hero type archetypes
yes,
within these modern day stories, where you've got the brave scientist who doesn't say much. You've got the soldier who's about to fucking crack, but turns out to be a great guy at the end of it. All these little tropes for
yeah,
characters in
certain
zombie stories
tropes. Yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah.
But
He sort of set those tropes up with these films, which is
yeah,
why I feel like if you're a big fan of zombie films anyway, but you haven't really that, maybe you're younger, maybe you're like me and older and missed them, and these are like so you've watched things like because I have watched things like Zombieland. I
yeah,
have watched Resident Evil's
yeah. The rest
film.
of the films, yeah.
I've watched other zombie films here and there, but I never watched these, and these are more the original. And you can sort of see those tropes. Go, backward engineering it, watching those set of films, you do get those tropes and those archetypes,
Yeah.
and this is where they started.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it is good. But this film is the weakest, being found
Yeah.
footage.
Yeah.
It does set up a number of good premises. It's definitely worth I'd say a good, at least a once over viewing. I'm tempted to view it again, but I would put it off. It would be, it's not,
I only ever watch it if I'm doing a full series watch.
yeah. It's sort of, if you're going to watch them all kind of thing. If you're going
Yeah.
to do that, do that. But it's not an essential.
No,
It's a good
no.
viewing.
But
It's a good viewing. It's an okay zombie film. But
moving
it is. Bit slow
Moving
paced.
on to the next film in the franchise that came out literally 2 years later. We have Survival of the Dead, which came out September 9th, 2009. Now, this one for me flew under the radar. I didn't know it was even out until I was walking through Asda's DVD section, and it was just up there, like on the charts of new releases, Survival of the Dead. I was like, I didn't even know there was a new one. So I picked it up, I gave it a watch, and it's a step up from Diary.
Yes.
It's not as good as Land,
No.
and it's definitely not as good as the original three. But for me, it sets up a neat little Elseworld trilogy.
Yes.
An alternate timeline is the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
Because in this one, you have a character who briefly cameoed, Jimmy just said, briefly cameoed in Diary of the Dead is the main character in this one. But the actor who played him was also in Land of the Dead, playing a character called Brubaker. Now, you have to think that maybe this is the same character, he just changed his name, getting into
certain things that happen in Diary that
yeah,
lead
we
into
won't spoil
Survival.
it. We won't spoil it. But for me, this sets up a new timeline, and I like to watch it in Diary of the Dead, or this is my order for it. I go Diary of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, and then Land of the Dead. Because with that one reoccurring actor slash character,
It fits
it
better.
sort of follows through, like, oh, that's what ended up happening to him. So if there is going to be another film, more on that later. If there is going to be another film with George no longer being here, if there is going to be another film and it follows on from the end of Land of the Dead, it does mean that there is sort of a solid continuity there. That if you watch Diary first and basically say, oh, this is the new version of Night.
Yeah.
You know, it's when the outbreak first happened, and then say that Survival was happening at the same time as Dawn.
Or very short time after.
Say that Land is what happens after the original trilogy and this new timeline, because it all comes together at the end of Land. Yeah. And then you've got I don't know. We're looking forward to the future there. But the premise of this one is a guy called Nicotine, that's his name, is lured to an island by a fake internet video. And yes, by O'Flynn. He's drawn into a generations old family feud on an island out in the middle of Delaware, where one side, O'Flynn is the guy saying, shoot them, they're not coming back. And then the other guy
would like his viewpoint on that better. That's one thing. That's the funny thing this film sets up. It sets up the idea. One side of the feud seems to be like, well, there might be a cure. Yeah. So if we kill him now as a zombie and then we find there's a cure, we can't bring it back.
But
the other side is like, they're an immediate threat. Get rid of them.
There is no cure. We're doing what we need to do. So it's that divisive line of, are these still our friends and family, or are they just animated dead flesh? And it does play around with that. It also plays very much into the tropes of, you know, the Hatfields versus the McCoys family feud going on for generations, to the point where no one can actually remember why they started feuding in the fucking first place. And like I said, this one is a step up. Storyline wise, acting wise, special effects wise. This one for me is better than Diary, but it's the second weakest one out of the mainline set of films. I enjoy it enough. Is it one that I would rewatch just on its own? Probably not. It's not overtly entertaining. There are some scenes where it just feels like they've put it's a bit padded out and it's a bit fillery. But all in all, it is a very good film. Better than Diary. Worth a watch at least once.
Yes.
So I've seen it a couple of times. Jimmy, you watched it once, and
I've watched it once. Again, similar to you, it wouldn't be on an immediate watch list, but if I was flicking through bored one night and I saw it there, I'd go on. I'll have that on again.
Yeah,
it's definitely one of them. It's definitely worth the first.
Enough. it's entertaining enough that
Yes.
if you were channel surfing and you saw it was on, you'd be like, oh well, yeah, I'll watch this. I get
And
that.
again,
I get
it,
that.
again, it answers some of them geek questions of what would happen if you do this with a zombie, or what would like biting a zombie back? Would that work? For
Turns out,
example,
no. Turns out, don't
turns
do
out
that.
that one's a no. Don't
Don't
do
do
that.
that.
No, because especially if it's an infection, that might go a very, very wrong way en route. From
Although
all in,
I like the idea behind it. Like if a zombie was biting on,
no. And I like the premise of it because that particular character is just attempting to survive that particular moment, and at the
you
time
know
it was
what,
a
right? Honestly, I made a joke about this years ago, right? Honestly, if a zombie jumped on me and started biting on my arm, I'd grab him because at that point you're already infected, right? If you're bitten,
biting back.
yeah, I'd be like, I just fucking like it. Ah, and
Yeah,
start
I got
chewing
it.
on
You
them.
try to chew my face off. Let me chew your face off first. Yeah,
Yeah,
no. If you're already infected, go with that. But if you're not such a good idea.
yeah. I mean, if you already know that your days are numbered, if you've already been bitten, by all means, bite a zombie.
Yeah. If there is nothing else left to lose.
Although one scene has just popped into my head because of how cartoonish it is. You know the bit I'm on about. It's the bit with the grenade. It blows the wall off and they're just stood there, black faced because of the explosion. And one of them just go,
About what you. I think
it's
I
the
think some
voice,
of
it's
this
the voice in the
happened
background that goes, Jesus Christ, what was that?
just slightly, like we said, Land came out before this one, right?
Yeah, Land came out 2005. This came out
So
2009.
I think this might be a homage back because as we didn't mention this, but with Land,
You know about the guy who fell on his
Shaun,
grenade?
Shaun of the Dead was coming out just
Uh,
about the same
yes,
timing.
yes. Basically, I kind of had my story a little bit wrong on this one. It wasn't because um, they wanted to. It was a whole thing. Basically, after Shaun of the Dead come out, George liked it so much that he invited Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright to come over to cameo as zombies in Land of the Dead. It was sort of
You
his
got
way
the
of saying
cameo there.
it was his.
So I think that grenade scene might be yet another little homage and comedy moment inspired by a film that was inspired by his
Yeah, you know.
yeah, because that grenade is such a funny scene. And it is nice to have that little bit of comedy in the middle of a much more serious zombie film.
But as of today, that is the OG films and the modern trilogy covered. Now, I did find out while doing research there is another film being planned, Twilight of the Dead.
Yes, I come across
It
this.
does not have an official release date yet, but basically, after the release of Survival and Diary, George was unhappy about the way he left things with the franchise. And he did start work on another film. But unfortunately, in 2017, he passed away from lung cancer, meaning that the film basically kind of just went into limbo for a bit. But it has been finished up by Suzanne Romero and a couple of other people. And it's on track at the moment to be in production as of right now.
Right.
Don't
I've come across something similar.
I know nothing of the story. No story elements have been leaked. Apparently, the only thing that it's mentioned is that Twilight of the Dead is going to be the final chapter to this franchise, and it is also going to carry on not so much the story of Big Daddy, but the story of the zombies are getting smarter. And the way it was set up at the end of Land of the Dead, I'm more interested in seeing that because we've seen countless zombie movies at this point that always tell it from the survivor's point of view. You've got to think that at this point in the franchise, the survivors are few and far between. And I would like to see, a bit bleak here, but do a movie, concentrate it on a group of zombies getting rid of the last few humans.
Yeah.
Flip it on, flip it on its head. Flip it on its head to the zombies. Humans are the monsters. You know, think about it this way: from the zombies' perspective, the humans are the monsters. They're the ones that would be going around trying to kill them.
Yes.
You know, unprovoked. Well, kind of unprovoked. Anyway, that's looking into the future. That's looking into the future. And honestly, if and when this film does come out, I will be first in fucking line to see it, because if it's the last George Romero written zombie film we're ever gonna get,
it's going to be at least part. It sounds like it's going to at least be most of the bulk is going to be done by George, and it's a posthumous.
Yeah,
with it being probably edited and finished and finalized by others.
yes.
So,
but moving on for the final part of the show, we're going to discuss the remake trilogy, as we're calling it. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Well, call it remake trilogy. We're only actually, however, folks, going to cover two, because I haven't watched the third. And Violet,
does not like
your
that.
thoughts out later.
Anyway, Night of the Living Dead, George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead, came out in 1990 on October 19th, directed by Tom Savini himself in his feature film directorial debut. And this, for me, is how you do a remake. No point covering the premise, because it follows the same basic premise, with the different fact that instead of Barbara going catatonic and being pretty much useless, is almost sort of follows that Ellen Ripley archetype, where she goes, you know what, fuck this, I'm fighting back. Yeah. She's not a weak, mousy type character. She starts off like that, but once she's dealt with the emotional trauma of what's going on, she fights back. Yes. And this, for me, may be sacrilegious to say, I like this one more than the original. I can watch the remake more often than the original. And I think it's purely because it just takes what was so great about the original and just turns it does a spinal tap.
Spinal taps it. Both of the next two get spinal tap, but there are problems. We'll get to the other bit.
Yeah, but it to me, it turns it up to 11 in terms of the storytelling, the characters. It streamlines every fucking thing. Yeah. And it adds a lot more action and drama. And the second performance I ever saw by the late, great Tony Todd. I mean, when we watched this film, I was welling up at points, because it was just like, we're never going to get that man doing that kind of performance ever again. Tony Todd is the reason why I love this film. His portrayal of Ben, his speeches that he does at the beginning of the film, where he's talking over what he's seen. You believe that this guy has been through hell. You really do. He puts that such gravitas into that moment that you're like,
excellent acting choice on that one.
Yeah, and Patricia Tallman as Barbara, just phenomenal performance. I love her as an actress because of this film. Yeah. So you first time viewing, Jimmy? Go for it.
Again, you said this one, it is spinal taps. It just takes the original and it does ramp it up to 11.
It does.
It might be again, this is a 1990s film, so that's what, 35 years old?
At this point, yes.
It's a 35-year-old film. But again, this holds up better than some releases that Marvel brought out like 5 years ago.
Because again, practical effects.
You've definitely done that to me with this set of film of intro. Practical effects. If you can do practical effects, folks,
you can do practical effects. Champion them.
They're more believable. It's more believable. Yeah. And there were some moments on me viewing this with you, Violet, that I was a bit, oh,
that's new.
It's a film. It's a film, Jim. It's a film. Right? But yeah, no, it was thoroughly enjoyable from beginning to end. I mean, without spoiling too much for a first time viewer, watch the original
And then
and the way in which Barbara's brother, unfortunately, exits that film.
yeah, the impact. Oh,
This one gets straight into it. It's also more believable with the banter between a sister and brother, what they're doing, right? Yeah. But straight away, with they're coming to get you, Barbara, and then things happen. Yeah, no, that was one hell of an impact.
Yes.
It does not mess around. It gets straight into the meat of the matter, and it goes and ramps from there. It just ramps everything to 11, and it keeps going.
But moving swiftly on, up next, we have the Dawn of the Dead remake, directed by Zack Snyder, starring Ving Rhames, Sarah Polley, and a couple of other people. One actor I know his name, Ty Burrell. He's in it. Apparently, he's quite a big name. But that came out March 19th, 2004. Another one I went into the cinema to see. And we watched the director's cut, not the theatrical cut.
Yes. Yes, we did.
And all I'm going to say is, you were fucking warned.
I was fucking warned, folks. Now we'll just cover that little fact. Like I said,
I've been sat here this whole time.
Watch these films.
Lee, I've been sat here talking about this all the time, and I forgot the visual aids.
Oh,
here we have Land of the Dead. There you go, the director's cut.
Dead. Yeah. We will quickly catch up, folks.
Diary of the Dead. I mean, it says they're outstanding and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
that is the weakest one. It's that's a 2000s thing, folks.
We have Survival of the Dead, and I will admit, I like the artwork on this one. It's almost comic book. It's almost comic book.
Yes,
I kind of like that art style.
Yeah.
This on the back actually says Romero's best zombie film since Dawn of the Dead. No, but okay. And the one we're talking about right now, Night of the Living Dead, 1990.
That was the one we just talked about. We're on to Dawn of the Dead.
Well, no, I mean, back to the Night of the Living Dead remake. Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, actually, yeah, I just did the names and stuff, didn't I? Yeah. Dawn of the Dead remake, sorry.
I had trouble following things.
I lost my train of thought because I saw the pile of DVDs next to me. Anyway, yes, the remake of Dawn of the Dead. This one for me was... It again follows the same basic premise. Group of survivors take hold up in the mall, but the intro for this one and it changes things up a fucking lot, because in this one it's not the show slow zombies.
They're very quick.
These fuckers can sprint. These motherfuckers can sprint, right? So it instantly ups the danger factor. Now, this film, again, suffers from that problem of there's one too many characters. A lot of them get lost.
Yep.
That's my main complaint with this one. Overall,
as daft as it is, the complaint I had for the original Dawn, not enough characters.
It's the opposite for this one. There's too many.
Overcompensates.
It's too many.
And now there's too many.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of them, you only barely get to know their names before they're gone. Or before it gets to the end of the film and you're like, oh. Okay. But overall, this does a little, it kind of turns it up to 11, but it's a whole new take on Dawn of the Dead. It's fast-running zombies. The virus works a lot fucking quicker. You know, it's a very early 2000s action zombie movie. There are shootouts, there are run and gun scenes, there are explosive fucking headshots in it. But overall, I really enjoyed this one. I watched it.
No, this is a film that I would, as daft as it was going into it the first time, folks. If you've got a problem with
first time viewing, Jimmy, come on, first time viewing. What was it like for you?
You did enjoy torturing me with this one.
Oh, yes.
You fucking warned me. Like I said earlier, if you're going to watch horror films, do it in a correct sequence. Because I did not watch these in a correct sequence. I watched this a bit before the others, and I perhaps should have watched some of the other ones that are a bit more modern and built up to this one because the special effects very much hold up.
Oh, yes.
If you straight away, it ramps very, very fucking quickly.
Naught to
With
60.
limited warning, it goes from naught. It is somewhat like a Lamborghini going from naught to 100 mile an hour in a few seconds.
Yeah,
You know, it does get there very
definitely.
quickly.
It's definitely one of those.
It definitely did that. If you had a problem with kid zombies, you'll get over that though very quickly. You'll get over that one very quickly in the very
Well,
first set of scenes, but then it
fucking
goes
well.
what? But then it decides to turn that up to 11.
Don't
And
spoil it. Don't spoil it for those who've never seen it, but go and watch.
yeah, I won't. I'll go with that. It's not limited to just children. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and situations of a psychological nature can happen.
Yes.
And despite all the psychological scarring you gave me, as daft as it is, I want to watch this one.
You'd watch it again. Yeah.
I'd watch this one again.
That's why I love horror movies.
I'd watch this one again.
For me, it's nowhere, it's not a scratch on the original, not a scratch, because it's a very, very different film. I had this debate again with a friend in college. Which one was scarier, the original Dawn or the remake? For me, I still defend this now, the original is scarier because the zombies, although they're slow, they're always there. You can never get away from them. The fast moving zombies, they're more dangerous,
Very much more dangerous.
but that's more upping the threat factor than the fear factor because,
Yeah.
like I said about the slow moving zombies, you scream when you see one, it's just going to attract even more of
More.
them. But it's going to take longer for you to fucking die because they take longer to get to you.
And while you're thinking
Whereas
you
in
might
in
be
the
able to get
remake,
away,
they run
someone
at
else
you,
is.
they're on you, that's it. Once they're on you, you're gone. That's it, they've got you. You know?
Yeah.
So for me,
But it's like a game of with the newer stuff. It's like a game of tag. With the new stuff, it's like a game of tag. You try to outrun them, and if you don't, that's it. There's a threat factor for the tag. Whereas it's like playing tag, but with something that's ever present and always behind you.
yeah, it's like running from a wasp. It's always there.
Yeah,
No matter
yeah,
where
yeah.
you go, no matter how fast you go, if a wasp is chasing you,
Always there.
it's always right here. Right, just in that peripheral view. You look behind you and it's right fucking there.
Yeah. So
But
the fear factor on the original is higher, but the threat for this one is,
oh
and
yeah,
things are a lot much more quicker.
yes, yes.
And the practical effects still goddamn work with that
Oh yeah.
one.
For me, this one, it's up there as a good horror movie. It's up there as a good zombie movie. But in terms of remake, it's one of those ones where I feel that it strayed a little bit too far
In
from
the
what
original pack.
the original had going for it. Not in a bad way. It's just they're two very, very different films. Like
Yeah.
that you can't really compare them because one's meant to be a slow one's meant to be like a slow burn drama about the characters. The other one's meant to be an action movie about the threat of zombies. That's kind of where it's at for me. But
This one also changed the rule, I believe.
yeah, the zombies can run. That was never a thing before. But anyway, moving on to the last one and the quickest fucking one. The 2008 remake of Day of the Dead came out April 18th, 2008.
And
I have seen this film only once and I refuse to watch it ever again. That's how bad it
yeah,
was.
she refuses to acknowledge its existence.
It's not that I don't want to acknowledge its existence. It's the fact that it is so bad, so bad that I don't want to put my brain through that again. Like
I have
don't get me wrong, I have watched some schlocky B movies made on absolute shoestring budgets, and I've sat down afterwards and gone, you know what? That was pretty entertaining. The remake of Day of the Dead, when I got to the end of that film, it was the first time ever watching a zombie movie. I sat back and went, thank fuck that's finished. I can fucking go now. Like, it was so bad. The zombies are parkour. It tries to mix slow zombies and fast zombies, and one of them's an experiment gone wrong, and he's climbing the walls using claws like he's a fucking licker from Resident Evil. And I'm just like, this is not what I wanted from a Day of the Dead remake. A lot of people assumed, because Ving Rhames is in both of them, that this was sort of going to be a follow-up to Dawn of the Dead.
Right.
No, it really wasn't. It just set up its own continuity out of fucking nowhere. Okay. Fucking okay.
Very well, folks. I've got very little to say here because I haven't yet watched this
Jimmy's
one.
never even watched that one. And I have said to him, if you're going to watch it, by all means go ahead. But don't come crying to me when it gets to the end of it.
And there you go.
Pretty much
So,
it. That's
this
pretty
is
much
why
it.
I haven't. This is why I'm quiet at this point with that one because I don't know. This is going to be a film because so first time viewer perspective coming from somebody who's already watched it only once. I'm not looking forward to it if I do decide to watch it.
I really wouldn't. I'd leave.
I'm only with the take that Violet's given. I'm kind of only interested in watching this simply to see how bad it is.
It's not even it's so bad it's good. It's
Yeah, no. I like to see
starts
some
off
films are
good.
like that.
It makes that big mistake though, like a lot of films kind of from this time period. It starts off quite strong. It's the initial days of the outbreak. It's set at a hospital, so the threat level is already, up there. But then it goes further and further and further into the ridiculous and the obscure, where they're in a secret military base that was hidden in the mountains that they didn't know about. And the reason why the zombies are there is because some German scientist was trying to create super soldiers, and now he's a super zombie and he can climb on walls like fucking Spider-Man. And I'm like, what? What?
It's that how did we get from point A to point B?
Yeah, like, how much coke were you snorting writing this script? It's my only thought process on it. But that brings us to a close on the Romero Dead franchise. There's Dawn of the Dead, the director's cut as well. But that's it.
Those are the visual aids. He doesn't own a copy of the other one.
No, because I won't even buy that one to complete my collection. That's how much I despise the remake of
There
Day
you
of
go.
the Dead. It is so bad. So fucking bad. But anyway, that is our first episode in the bag.
That's the first one.
Return to Violet's Underworld, playing with the undead for a little bit.
And poor old Jim.
But,
Yeah, the newest torture
Zombie
victim.
King, Scully back with us for another season. Deadhead Ed's got a new friend. You'll see more of him in coming episodes. But that's it for tonight's episode, everybody. So, coming up next time, we're going to get a little bit hairy and scary around here. We're going to be talking about some classic choices from the werewolf movie genre. And all of these, literally all of these, are first time viewing for you, aren't they, Jimmy? We're not going to tell you what we're watching. You'll find out in the episode.
I've got a lot of binge watching. I've got to fit in a lot of binge watching, folks.
And also to everyone out there in YouTube land, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, drop a comment, and if there's any horror film franchises or even just one-off horror films that you would like to see us take a look at, drop it on the comments. I'll put it in the show notes. We'll get around to it eventually. So, do you want to say goodnight now, Jimmy?
I suppose I should. Good night, folks.
Well, good night to my sweet tortured souls. And remember, if you can't be good, be twisted. Don't get mad, baby. Get sadistic. Mwah. See you in the next episode, everyone. Bye.